the struggle came to an end, apartheid collapsed, a democratic government was put in place, and today we have a constitution which entrenches fundamental human rights, a constitution which contains as one of its foundational values the rule of law, a constitution which empowers the courts of the country and in fact requires them to set aside any legislation which is inconsistent with the Constitution. A Constitution which says that all organs of state and all persons are bound by orders of the court. And so today the courts have a role different to that which they had under apartheid. Under apartheid, courts had to enforce racist legislation. Courts became, in part, instruments of oppression. But at the same time, in a very contradictory way, the areas which were left open, where law didn't intrude, where specific provisions hadn't been given, the courts operated in a very narrow area as instruments of justice. In a sense, at a very primitive level, they applied rule of law principles, which, by their own virtue, because they had to observe the law, at times had to provide justice. Now, there's much academic debate about what we mean by the rule of law. What do we mean by it? There is one very prominent observer whom, in my written text, I have actually the words that he used, where he talked about a country. He gave a hypothetical. There may be a country which promotes racism, oppresses its people, sexually oppressive, and in fact described what one might look at, and it would really mirror South Africa under apartheid. He said such a country might actually reflect the rule of law better than a democracy, because it will apply the law in every respect, whereas democracies don't always do so. Now, I think that there may be some debate about the precise parameters of the rule of law, but today it is accepted and must be accepted, and indeed the American Bar Association and it's the World Justice Forum, which is really a product of the American Bar Association, accept that there are certain substantive requirements of the rule of law, which include respect for fundamental rights, which would include really a democracy, and various criteria which you will all be aware of, which require substantive compliance with the legal regime of the country concerned before it can be said to be a rule of law country. And what I think one can learn from the struggle in South Africa and what happened in South Africa is that for years there was an ongoing struggle through the courts. For years people were claiming rights and asserting rights. And for years they were being denied those rights, and they were being pushed into oppression. And ultimately, when the time came that the repressive regime collapsed, there was a clamor for rights, a desire for rights, because we'd lived for years, some for centuries, our country, but in immediate memory, we'd all lived without rights. And so our Constitution entrenched rights. And today we are a country, a constitutional state, a state committed to the rule of law, a state with an independent judiciary, a state in which anyone can turn to the court, a state in which our Constitution actually broadens access to ensure that people who wish to get to the court can get there, and that if needs be, that associations or others can bring issues to the court. Much broader access rights than exist in many countries. And yet, we're a country in which there is great poverty. We're a country in which a legacy of the past hangs over us, where there are enormous divisions between rich and poor. We're a democracy, but a fragile democracy. And we're struggling to build a strong democracy. I'm confident about our future. I believe in our country. We have come through so much. We have achieved so much in recent times. I can't believe that now that we have got rid of apartheid, now that we've established our democracy, that we won't make it work. But it is fragile. And I think, looking back on our history, there are two things. One is, I think there is a lesson. I think that there's a lesson for everyone. It's a lesson which I think affirms the rule of law program of the American Bar Association. And that is that a struggle for rights and a struggle through law is important. And that a struggle for rights and through law can actually help achieve good law. And that's why it's so important, I think, that support is given to countries where the legal infrastructure may be weak and where access to courts may be ineffective and where the judiciary may be under-resourced. Because it's only by strengthening that and by encouraging the struggle for rights that we can hope to get rights. And I think as far as our future is concerned, the Constitution is the foundation on which we're to build. It offers us hope. We in some way have to meet the problems of impoverishment, the problems of underdevelopment, and the fragility that comes with it in our society with the same commitment that we confronted apartheid in the years and actually succeeded in overcoming it. And so one of the pillars for the future, and one of the pillars around which we have to build our future must be the rule of law. And if we can succeed and establish a country, it is going to affect not only our country, but I think the whole continent. And so it's there that we are now. And it's here that I am now, and I thank you very much for what you have done for me tonight. I apologize for leaving my speech behind. I can't think why I did it, but I'll be happy to send a neatly edited copy to Mr. Boone. And thank you all very much indeed.